watching The Money Show. I'm Kavita Thapliyal and it's Women's Wednesday on The Money Show. That's right. Today we are talking about an issue that affects almost every Indian household, but it is rarely discussed openly. Women and estate planning. That's right. Whether it's salary, business income, jewelry, wedding gifts or property inherited from parents. Women today own more self-acquired assets than before. Yet shockingly, 72% of inheritance disputes in India arise because no will has made, and a significant portion of women's wealth, including their absolute legal property, goes undocumented and often unclaimed. Now, the Supreme Court has repeatedly emphasized that importance of documenting women's assets, especially self-acquired property, to avoid inter-family disputes. Without a will, a woman's assets may get distributed under default family law, even to people she may not have intended to benefit. Now, from safeguarding children's guardianship, protecting widows in blended families, ensuring married daughters pass on inherited assets smoothly, to preventing marital relatives from staking unwanted claims, a will is one of the most powerful financial tools a woman can create. So let's break down why this matters so much and what every woman must know. Now we are joined by Vishnu Chundi, founder of AasaanWill, who's been at the forefront of simplifying estate planning for Indian families. Hi, and welcome to the show, Vishnu. Let's talk about the core. Why women need a will, Vishnu. Statistics show that 1 in 3 Hindu women now they own self-acquired assets. Why is it still uncommon for women in India to draft their own will?
So firstly, good afternoon, everyone. It's a wonderful topic. Times are changing. Indian women are now a lot wealthier than her parents and her grandparents' generation. As you rightly mentioned, Kavita, they're acquiring wealth on their own, working, 30% representation in urban India and more. So naturally, it's only keeping in times with 2025 that they have more agency over who gets their wealth, their hard-earned wealth after they pass on, is an important point in their own financial journey.
Important. Can you let's talk about the legal aspect first, because that is what we should be helping our viewers understand. Can you explain what legally counts as self-acquired property for a woman, salary, jewelry, gifts or inheritance, etc.?
Yeah, so we can break this down into phases of life. So before marriage, during marriage, after marriage. So anything that obviously self-acquired is if you're working and if you're getting a salary, that's naturally self-acquired. If you receive gifts before marriage from your father, your parents, during your birthdays. Similarly, at the time of marriage, whatever gifts that you receive are technically yours. Nobody else has a claim on that. In legal parlance, we have a term called Stridhan, or women's wealth, translated into English. Similarly, at the time of childbirth, if somebody gives her a gift, that also belongs to her. So all of this technically falls under the bucket of self-acquired wealth, even if it's a gift for her specifically. And of course, there are various asset classes. It could be gold that she buys during her lifetime. It could be investments in mutual funds. It could be digital assets like crypto or digital gold. There's many types. I mean, Indian women have wonderful tastes in asset classes. So the entire gamut is going to be included under self-acquired wealth wherever she invests it.
Sure. Vishnu, it's also reported that 80% of women's Stridhan disputes arise due to poor documentation. Now, what exactly is Stridhan? Let's understand this in very basic language, and why is it critical to mention it clearly in a will?
Yeah, it's so essentially, as I said, Stridhan is anything that is gifted to the woman by her parents or her in-laws or the husband during, like essentially prior to marriage, during marriage, and post-marriage. So this could be any event in a life. It could be, as I mentioned, you finish school, you graduate top of your class, or you get into your favorite university. So people end up in our culture gifting their girl children. It could be a small token. Now, all of these things add up. So everything that includes, that falls within this bucket is called the Stridhan, which is essentially her own property. Now, the confusion comes aside because according to law, if an Indian Hindu woman does not have a will, then her legal heirs will be the ones who would be entitled to claim the property. Now, before marriage, it's the parents who are the legal heirs. So typically, if she has 100 rupees, 50 rupees would go to the mother and 50 rupees would go to the father. After marriage, her legal heirs automatically change to the husband and children. So imagine she's a single woman, no kids, just she's married, apologies. And so all of her 100 rupees would go to the husband in the absence of a will. Now, if she's a widowed woman, so there is no husband, guess what? The 100 rupees would go to the mother-in-law and it wouldn't go to her own parents. So I think that is where there could be a potential for friction between her parents and the in-laws.
Okay, so now just to understand, can a woman choose anyone as a beneficiary even outside the marital family?
Of course.
Okay.
I mean, not just a woman, anybody can, which is exactly what a will is for. The word, English word is, you can literally will your property to anybody you want. It could be your alma mater, a temple like the Tirupati or Ayodhya, whatever you are passionate about. Now, obviously, you have to make it legally valid and mention why you are including certain beneficiaries or excluding certain beneficiaries. So that is, I think, more the legalities of it. But by definition, you write your will to give whoever you want as the beneficiary.
All right. Let's focus the conversation on key protections a will actually provides. Now, specifically talking about childless women, why is writing a will even more essential for them?
Yes. So as I gave the example earlier, let's say a woman is married, her legal heirs have automatically switched to the husband and his family. Because historically, we've been a patriarchal society, so the laws assume that a woman goes from her parents' house to that of the husband's house. Even all of our rituals, etc., are on those lines. And in modern times, obviously, women are earning a lot more. And we started this show with how there's increased rates of women working in the labor force, both in urban as well as rural India. So naturally, with more personal wealth, they should also get more agency to decide who gets that wealth. Historically, it was essentially the woman was given a certain dowry and then she would be sent over to the in-laws' house. So there wasn't a lot of wealth on her own name. So this is the law. And then therefore, now what she needs to do is, of course, write a will to safeguard, especially if she's a single woman. She could write a will to essentially make sure her parents' financial future is secured, especially after they become senior citizens. She could also choose to protect the peace of her nephew or nieces if she has siblings and daughters or kids of the siblings. And these are all cases that we are seeing. We have customers who've written in their wills to be taken care of for their pets, because the pet essentially is their child. So now that's a huge commitment. Similarly, they've also been very philanthropic. They want to give back to their alma mater, whether it's their school, university, or in our case, like BITS Pilani, and so on and so forth. So many reasons.
All right. Let's also talk about, documenting guardianship for their children. What happens if a woman wants someone other than the paternal family to be a guardian? And also, Vishnu, in blended or joint families, we've seen, how can a woman's will protect her children and dependents if the home or business isn't in her name?
Yeah, so let's break those two. So on the guardian front, obviously, assuming that the husband is passed away, so it's a single mother and she has a minor child. So that's an excellent point. In fact, this applies to everybody, not just women. If you have a minor kid, you definitely need to be thinking about appointing a legal guardian, because one of the challenges in India is our systems are very fluid. Obviously, family helps, but raising a kid in today's India is not a trivial commitment. It's not just emotional guardianship, it's financial guardianship and legal guardianship over a long period of time. So you want to ensure that the guardian is also empowered to take care of the children's education and other expenses. So we have to formalize this through a legal guardianship, which could be mentioned in a will. It's literally like a single line, and you give a reason why you pick this person, which makes life so much easier. In the absence of which, somebody in the family has to volunteer and take on that role without any assistance or help out of the goodness of their heart. Now, obviously, they can do it for a year or two, but if it has to be done for 18 years or 20 years, that's going to be challenging, and you wouldn't want your child to be left at the mercy of a volunteering family member. So that's the first part. Now, in joint families in India, again, similarly, if the wealth is yours, you have acquired it, and you have certain values, your values might always not coincide with that of the in-laws family, or it might not always coincide with your own parents. We obviously have something called a generation gap. So how do you decide who could be an ideal guardian for your child? What values do you want somebody to imbibe into your child? Now, that is what the legal guardian role is. So you could, out of your own agency, pick, ideally discuss with your past husband, who would make a great guardian, who could bring up the kid, and then make it legal by mentioning it in the will. Otherwise, again, it will be by committee, everybody will chip in a little bit, and the child will be moving from home to home or value to value based on who they are exposed to.
Sure. All right, let's talk about practical impact and stats over here. We see that 1.5 lakh crores worth of assets remain unclaimed in India, Vishnu. Now, how much of this, in your experience, belongs to women whose assets were never documented? And also, what are the most common disputes you encounter when women don't leave a will?
Well, I think the first one is, let's assume 50%, right? Because as they say, even if a man is earning, they're not doing it in a vacuum. They are doing it because of the support of the mother, the sister, and of course the wife. So I would start with 50%, and if it's more, it's more depending on how many of them have actually earned it themselves. So it's a substantial amount of money. Like we are talking, it could be the fifth largest state budget in the country, if you just look at that unclaimed wealth. Now, naturally, that can be put to great use. And most what we have noticed is generally, and this is not just about Indian women, but globally, women tend to relegate financial planning and succession planning to their spouses. But that is changing. It's a welcome trend, but I don't think it's still at the same par. It's not 50-50 when it comes to financial planning between both the spouses. So that needs to be talked more about, especially inheritance laws are very, very important. It's the most important thing when it comes to equalizing the two genders, because there's only so much you can save through salaried income. There's only so much you can bring on through investments. If you're not taking care of your inheritance and who gets it and your rights of inheritance yourself, because that will always be the lion's share of anybody's total net worth. So ignoring that is not good, is not smart. And of course, a lot of people will benefit. No wonder the disputes are also rising, because today in India, if you're inheriting a real estate asset, let's say a home in a Bombay or a Bangalore, that's a significant amount of money that would take decades for anybody to earn in order to purchase that particular apartment on their own. So you should not be ignorant of your own rights, because according to law, both men and women they can get the same share from the parent. So there is no discrimination there. So as responsible parents, we should also write wills to just make it sure that the will clarifies what the law is also saying. Again, if you leave it to the interpretation of the family members, there's a chance that they might browbeat the female members of the family into saying, we will give most of it to the male members, and then you will get a little bit for your wedding and a little bit after that. So that should change.
Sure. And these leads to common disputes that you encounter as well.
Absolutely. That's like, if you have siblings, brother and sister, this is like the clash between parampara and law. Because historically, we've had a certain way of tradition of doing things in the country where the boy child would get most of it and the girl child would get a little bit of it, particularly during the marriage, and then she would be sent off. But law says it's 50-50. So parents of boys and girls, I think they're better off if they write a will and ensure that, yes, this is my reason why I'm giving 50% to the boy and 50% to the girl. Or if you want to change it, you do mention it, why you're giving more to the boy, like X percent more than the girl. You explain that in your will. Otherwise, it could lead to disputes later on, because once the girl gets married, the in-laws might encourage her to claim her 50% right.
Thank you so much, Vishnu, for being a part of this particular interaction on a very special Women's Wednesday. Thank you. viewers, it's time for a short break, but then post that, let's focus on women financial portfolio specific queries, and let's help you align your financial investments with your financial goals after this break.